it's Jenny, and in this video I will be playing the S1 Bass Clarinet Etude for Maryland's Senior All-State Auditions. It's from the Selected Studies book for clarinet. It's on page 2, and it's also the first etude in Row's 32 studies if you have that book from playing clarinet. So I'm going to go ahead and play it through, and then I'll give you some tips on how to practice. Okay, it's long and it's tiring, so that's basically the biggest thing you will have to work on, because since it's only one etude, excuse me, I'm a little sick, since it's only one etude, there's a pretty good chance that they could have you play it from top to bottom. Obviously I haven't listened back to it, but I can't imagine that it's more than 3 minutes, and they usually allot time for sight reading and scales, so I think there's a good chance that you could play through at least 3/4 of this etude. So while you want to practice things in small chunks, you also want to practice going start to finish and forcing yourself to keep going no matter what. So let's look back at the top of the etude. In the first line we have 2 trills, and the first one is an A to B natural. We don't want to use the real fingering for B natural because your trill will sound really messy. flat like I did. So what you want to do is you're going to be playing A, whoop, and then you are going to trill with the top side key. And it will sound like this. And then when you get to the G, you could use the real fingering for A, but it's a lot of hardware there, and you're probably going to hear it. And then you have to use the same fingering for that, and then get down to the F sharp. So instead, go G to A with the third side key up, or second one down, and G to A will sound like this. Now, the other thing I want you to do is when we have fortes and when we have crescendos, I want them big. When you're taking a bass clarinet audition, you want to show them that you can really fill up the instrument and fill up the room. Usually there's only 2 bass clarinets in the band, so you need to show them that you are an independent player, that you can count, and that you can play a forte sound if necessary. So in the second line, when we have the forte in the third measure, I would continue that crescendo all the way down to the E. And then you come away a little bit as you come up to the high E. Now, in the next measure, the last measure of the second line, we have a B grace note. In this case, we want to use the real fingering for the B, and we want to play that grace note longer than maybe you would normally play a grace note. If we don't give a little weight to it and push a little bit on it, it's going to sound like. And you're going to get a lot of the A and none of the B. They shouldn't be equal in length, but lengthen the B grace note a little bit so that the note comes out. We also have that in the first measure of the third line. The third line is tricky because we have these big jumps, the D-ya-E-ya-E-ya-E-ya. So what you need to be thinking about is giving more air to the lower note and floating up to the high note. So more air on the open Gs. It will feel counterintuitive because you're going to feel like you're going to squeak, but trust me, you need more air on the lower note. If you try to push for the top note, the top notes, the notes above the break, don't need as much air. Promise me you'll give more air to the lower note. And then when we come to the end of the third line, we have a breath mark. I want you to take that breath mark, but I don't want you to tongue the G afterwards. I want you to do an air attack. I also put some time in, a little squiggle is what I write in my part. So instead of tonguing the note, because G is such a gnarly note on bass clarinet, it's horrible, and depending on the instrument that you have, plays a big part in it. So make sure if you're using a school instrument, if you're using your own, that it's been looked over by a repair person, because bass clarinets can go out of whack a lot quicker than clarinets can. But if you try to tongue that note, you might squeak it. So going from I would do an air attack, which is instead of tonguing the note, a T sound, you go ha. It will give a smoother attack. I need another word other than attack. A smoother start to the note. And since we are slowing down a little, you have a little bit more time for that note to speak. In the fourth line, smack dab in the middle of the page, again, we really want to be loud. And keep the forte going, because do you really want to play high C on bass clarinet? No, neither do I. It's not a nice note. If you back off on sound, the note will squeak. So I would stay forte basically until the A. We even have a crescendo through the A up to the C, so make sure you're really doing that. If you find that you are squeaking that C slur into it, it won't be that noticeable, and it's better to have the note come out as what it's supposed to be than try to tongue it and squeak it. Make sure you come down at the end of that line so it doesn't sound so jarring in the fifth line when we have the piano. Now, after that low A, I would take a breath again. You're going to have to take more breaths than a clarinetist would who's playing this. The bass takes more air. You have to find the best place to take breaths. It's after low notes, mostly, throughout the piece. Mark in your breaths. That's for any audition you take. You'll forget them once you're in the audition room. If they're written in, you'll remember to breathe. So breathe after the low A and then go all the way up. Again, keep the air going up to the high A. Then we have a D sharp trill. You only have to move one finger for the D sharp trill, which is your ring finger. You might be tempted to move both. I think that's a risk of both fingers not coming down at the same time. So you can hold the D sharp and just wiggle your ring finger around a little bit for that trill. And then at the end of that line, we have a writ. I did a rather large writ. Two reasons. One, I think it fits the character of the piece. We're coming right before the recap, the tempo 1, where the main melody comes back again. And also, you'll be dying for air at that point. So if we slow down, you might even need to exhale and inhale again. You can take a nice deep breath and restart at the tempo 1. The tempo 1, like I said, is the melody from beginning. And the only thing, they add some embellishments. So we have a turn. What a turn is we have a note. We start on that note. We go one note higher, come back to the note, go one note lower, and come back to the note. That's generally a turn. Luckily, they write at the bottom of the page, they tell us exactly how to do the turn, exactly how to count it. We have the same trills, A to B and G to A, in the recapitulation as well. As always, make sure you're doing what's on the page, do the writs, do the a tempos, make sure you know what dolce means. I'm not going to tell you, look it up, you got Google. And we have one more turn at the bottom line. The last thing I want to leave you with is please, 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 do not breathe before the last note. Don't breathe before the high C. Everyone will crack it. So what you need to do is after the low G, 1, 2, 3, the fourth measure before the end, take a breath and force yourself to play the last 3 measures in one breath. And if you're up on that high C and you know that you are going to squeak, gracefully bow out, diminuendo, and say see ya to the etude, okay? I hope that's been helpful and happy practicing. Bye guys.